good afternoon. Quite a long time ago, I put out a video that was entitled Trombones and Tubas Are Not in Concert Pitch. And that video, more than most, attracted quite a reasonable amount of negative feedback. And I think that was for two real reasons. Firstly, I don't think I explained what I was getting on about very clearly. And secondly, because of that, potentially, people just simply didn't understand the concept that I was trying to discuss. So what I'm going to do tonight is go over this topic again, because I believe the fundamentals of what I was saying are true, but I just need to enunciate it a little bit better. So, the statement that trombones and tubas are in concert pitch absolutely is wrong. The correct statement is that trombones and tubas, and I'm going to extend this to specifically say tenor trombones and tubas and baritones and euphoniums are not always in concert pitch. Absolutely, those subset of instruments, the tenor trombone, the baritone, the euphonium and the tubas, they are sometimes in concert pitch. For instance, if you go along to an orchestra, to a jazz band, or to any type of musical group where these instruments play in the bass clef, they are absolutely in concert pitch. They are non-transposing instruments. However, if you take that same subset of instruments and put them into an environment like the brass band or some concert and wind bands where they read treble clef, they absolutely are not in concert pitch. They become transposing instruments. The instruments themselves don't change, it's just the way that the notes are written and expressed on the page. You see, if we were to take a cello or a bassoon or an instrument that natively plays in the bass clef, and if we were to write a phrase of music for them that went into the tenor or treble clefs, then those particular instruments treat the treble clef as an extension of the bass clef, as it absolutely is. However, in the case of brass bands, in the case of some concert and wind bands where they write in treble clef, they don't treat the treble and the bass clef as being on a continual spectrum. They are two completely independent schemas for expressing the notes that you want the musicians to play. So let's talk a little bit about the saxophone family. The saxophone family is a group of musical instruments that are all written in treble clef. The soprano, alto, tenor, baritone sax, they are all written in treble clef. Even though the baritone saxophone could well be written in bass clef, it isn't. And the reason for that is so that the player can go from one to the other of the members of that family without having to relearn fingering, without having to relearn clefs. It's all the same. If you look at the clarinet family, the standard soprano clarinet and the bass clarinet, the same thing applies. Bass clarinet is almost always written in treble clef, so that the person who plays a clarinet can double without having to relearn clefs, without having to relearn fingering. It is the same in the brass band, and it is the same in some concert and wind bands. If I was to go from a cornet to a horn to a baritone to a euphonium to a tuba in the brass band, all of the fingering is the same, all of the clefs are the same, and it makes it easy to jump between where additional players may be needed. However, when we look at orchestral brass instruments, when we look at, I've also counted it in the jazz band, or other musical groups that express those lower brass instruments in the bass clef, that principle, that idea goes completely out the window. They're all written in the bass clef, and so as a result, if you were to go from a euphonium to a F tuba to a B flat tuba to a C tuba or to whatever sort of low brass instrument, you are potentially going to have to relearn your fingering for each instrument. I play in a concert band at the moment, and I'm playing a tuba in E flat. If I was to suddenly take a tuba in B flat to that same concert band, the music that I would look at would be exactly the same, but the fingers that I'd have to push down would be different. And so that is just a result of these two sort of environments, these two playing environments that we have. We have the transposing environment, where the players all play the same notes, the same fingering, etc., and that's expressed in treble clef. Then we've got the very same instruments, but just with a different way of approaching that writing, where they are non-transposing instruments, in concert pitch. That's expressed in bass clef. And these rules, this particular arrangement is really just specific to this subset of instruments. And that's perhaps one of the things I didn't explain very well in my last video, because I had some people saying, why, by that definition, my guitar's in the key of E, and various things like that. So let me make it clear. This applies only to the tenor trombone, the euphonium, the baritone, and the tuba. You might ask, why doesn't it apply to the bass trombone? Well, the bass trombone is slightly different. I have never seen a piece of music for the bass trombone expressed in treble clef. That has always been in bass clef, as far as my research can show me. Even in the brass band, the bass trombone is the only instrument in the brass band, other than timpanis and some percussion, that is expressed in bass clef. Just what that landscape looks like. So yes, hopefully this time round I've made that a little bit more clearer than what I did last time. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the comments below. Thanks very much.